Hi, I'm Erwin. I'm also an art educator in Singapore, and I'm also the designer of the entire range of Etchr Sketchbook. Yeah, I think that's good. Yeah, I don't know about that, but it's the truth, man. It's the truth. I'm just telling the truth. Hi, I'm Erwin, an art educator in Singapore, and also the designer of Etchr's range of watercolor sketchbook. So I started off young, and I was really into drawing and sketching, and that naturally progressed into traveling as I get older and I can afford to go to different places. And I really enjoy exploring new culture, new places, and new sceneries. And I love to capture that on site. That's just something that I really like to do and enjoy. And I also try to teach people how to do that. Being an art educator, I teach people how to do online outdoor sketching when I have classes at the art institutes over here. So back in 2014, I couldn't find any good options. I was doing a lot of travel sketching, hitting a lot with watercolor, but I couldn't find a sketchbook that could take heavy beating, that provide me with the versatility or even the durability of actual real good watercolor paper. And on the other end, I was also thinking that all the makers out there for sketchbook weren't really artists. They weren't thinking for the artists. They don't care like what it is. They just try to make, I guess, money out from a sketchbook. So from a user perspective as an artist, I really cherish like being able to paint as good as possible. And I needed a good quality of paper. And I also thought it was ironic because artists were spending money on sketchbook that was cheap, but at the same time they wouldn't want to give away the sketchbook or sell it at any price. So artists actually really cherish their sketchbook. So I thought perhaps then artists should actually make a sketchbook that they will really want to use and keep. And this is where I decided to try to make a sketchbook with the highest quality of paper that they could use to produce the best work, and at the same time keep it for a long, long time. From an artist's perspective, the most important thing is obviously the paper. So I have to go through a series of selection to find a good watercolor paper that's 100% cotton. I also have to consider factors that the sketchbook will lay flat. And in order to do that, we need to go into various decisions that doesn't really make economic sense. For instance, considering the grain direction of the paper. By doing that, we don't really optimize paper usage, but we make sure that the paper will fall and lay flat when it's open up. Another thing that we did, which is not very economic in terms of a maker's perspective, is to actually hand tab paper just to retain the nice jagged edges on the paper, just to retain and also to mimic that nice aesthetic of cotton paper. Other consideration that we consider was also like producing limited batches of like cold and hot press paper, because in order to make a run of hot press, we had to buy a certain amount of paper. And so this was some of the consideration involved with making the Perfect Sketchbook. Well, it came from the fact that I was really trying to make a sketchbook that was perfect for me to begin with. And during that campaign in 2014, when I first started the Kickstarter, I didn't have enough followers to back it. So I thought it was a good idea to call it the Perfect Sketchbook because it sounded so audacious. But at the same time, it allowed me to attract attention that I need and for the project to be crowdfunded. I know it sounded arrogant, but at the same time, it also motivated me to make this sketchbook really perfect since I call it the Perfect Sketchbook. And it really became the motivation behind it, because after the first edition, the second edition went through iteration where we actually try to make it really, really perfect. To the point where people who use the sketchbook didn't dare to use the sketchbook because they felt that their skill set was not perfect enough to use such a high-end Perfect Sketchbook. So they needed to wait for like the perfect occasion, skill set to get to a certain level in order to be brave enough to even like open up the sketchbook. And that is really where the name started from and truly became the perfect sketchbook, you know? In short, anybody who wants to learn watercolor should actually just consider using good quality 100% cotton paper. The reason for that is that if you use a good pigment but apply it on an inferior paper or a not good watercolor paper, you are essentially picking up bad habits. You wouldn't be able to know how the pigment responds on good paper. You wouldn't be able to achieve the results of the pigment settling, laying down flat, or having like nice gradation if you don't use good paper to begin with. So it's actually a really good practice to actually start, you know, by learning watercolor on good cotton paper. And there's so many challenges, you know. First of all, to be able to find the paper that you like and to find the paper supplier who is willing to supply you with that paper. Then you got to find a manufacturer who is not just good, but also willing to do the requirements that you set up for them, like getting the paper direction right, making sure there's even distribution of watermark, having them hand tear the paper and bind it perfect. These are all problems, and you must be crazy to want to do this project, which I don't think any makers out there is willing, because you wouldn't find a perfect sketchbook with jagged edges out there except for ours. So it's so hard to make money, and that's the reason why, and it's so difficult to distribute around the world. But at the same time, it's also nice to realize that you're the only one making it. And when I go out there and see people using my sketchbook, that's a sense of satisfaction, you know, with doing something like that. Well, even though the response was amazing and it only took me about 2 days to crowdfund most of this project, after the second run, I really was too tired to continue because this was not really a commercially feasible project to continue, because there was just too many things that I wouldn't compromise to make it commercial. Like I talk about, like, you know, hand tearing the paper and stuff like that. Very few people will be willing to do that. In fact, I actually tried to give this project away to the community during one of my newsletter update. I asked if anybody was willing to take over and like be crazy enough to take over this project. And nobody actually did. And so I thought, like, we should just stop it, you know. Actually, I stopped making the Perfect Sketchbook, and I thought that was the end of it, until Simon and Yan came along from Etchr and approached me, expressing interest to bring back the signature series. I thought they were really crazy, and I actually tried to stop them from doing it. But it turns out to be quite an interesting collaboration, because we brought back the signature series and people loved it. And that also gave us inspiration to perhaps consider other people who found the Perfect Sketchbook too perfect and too intimidating. And we decided to expand the range and include different sizes, different offerings of paper for people who are also trying to learn watercolor but are perhaps not ready to use the signature series. I think the big thing about it is the fact that it is really designed by an artist for artists, and the fact that it's so special is the fact that people feel that it's special is because it's one of those sketchbooks that people like will want to put their hands on, will want to use it, and will want to keep it. I would say it's all about the details that goes into the sketchbook, picking the right materials. For one, we use archival paper, watercolor paper that is like archival, that can be kept for a long time. Then we consider details like hand tearing the paper, keeping the jagged edges. When I first started the Perfect Sketchbook, it's actually a leather cover, and then when Etchr came along, because they are vegan-friendly product company, we pivoted like the cover to something vegan-friendly. we also consider other, like we consider details in other stuff, like even the elastic band, how long the thing will last, even though that thing would not last. We consider all these factors involved, like whether the ribbon is gonna, like, I don't know, colors comes off of the ribbon, stuff like that. These all the details that we consider in making the sketchbook. But if you were to ask me, I think what makes the sketchbook special is the fact that it is a sketchbook that watercolor artists would like to have, and they'll be happy to use it because of the material that's involved in it, and they will be happy to keep it and pass it down, you know, like the memories of their sketches to maybe their kids or even like the grandkids. So I think that is actually what truly makes the sketchbook special. I think it's great. I think we set out to actually raise awareness of watercolor paper, and it actually been working. And a lot of people are a lot more aware of watercolor paper sketchbook these days, and it's really fun to actually see the sketchbook in action, you know, especially when you go out there and sketch with maybe the urban sketchers and you see them using it and you see the actual final product being produced by them. And sometimes, you know, you see how they share their proud work on the social media, and it's just fun. It's also fun to see that the sketches that I made around the world is now back out onto the covers of this sketchbook around the world. And this has also become one of my to-do lists next, to go and pop into one of those art supply stores that has my sketchbook to see them being distributed.